Hey you. Yeah you. I'm not dead. Would you look at that? So you saw the Wonderlands announcement and decided to either try out this game called Borderlands 3 or you're a returning player, like me, who may have stopped playing the game a while back and is now deciding to make a triumphant return and find out what went down in the months since. And now you feel like a fish out of water and got no idea what you actually missed. Well, have no fear, fellow Vault Hunter, I got you covered. In this series, I'll be taking you through things you may have missed during your absence and get new players up to speed on what's available to even do in this massive game. Get your popcorn popped and your seats warm, and allow me to take you through a journey of what you've missed. So, the short answer is, you missed a fair bit, especially if you haven't played in many months. Chances are, you missed two pieces of hefty DLC content, the designer's cut and the director's cut. As the title of this video suggests, I'm going to be covering the director's cut DLC, but I'll be creating a follow-up nutshell video for designer's cut too. But in essence, the designer's cut added a completely new game mode, which is quite fun, and a bunch of kick-ass gear. And the director's cut gave us a raid boss, mini DLC, vault cards, and a bunch of shiny gear. But let's start with the most hype introduction that was in the director's cut DLC, and that was the new raid boss. And finally, after long last, we now have a standalone raid boss that isn't part of a takedown. Vault Hunters rejoice! In Ascension Bluff, there's a door, the fabled door from the days of old. If you know, you know. Fast travel through it and you enter Darkthirst Dominion. Casually stroll up to a big glowing door and you're prompted to enter, provided you pay a small fee. You just dump some iridium into it, 500 to be exact, and Papa Randy blesses the door with his radiant energy, and you can enter a cavern to beat the crap out of Vermi from BL2 and his hipster cousin Hemovorous, the main attraction. Overall, it's a decent fight. There's a few stages to actually getting Hemovorous to spawn, much the same as getting Vermi to spawn in BL2. But once you do, they both emerge at once and combat ensues. Should you emerge victorious, you get blessed with some shiny loot. Although, I just got a grenade that's it's basically a bowling ball.
What? What the fuck?
Hemo also drops some other gear too that honestly is pretty cool. You get the replay pistol that's manufactured by Atlas, and the ionic disruptor sniper that's made by Jacobs, as well as an artifact called the Company Man that's basically a stat stick for the different manufacturers. You get bonuses like critical hit damage, area damage, and manufacturer damage. All in all, it makes Allegiance runs quite powerful, but also helps push the limit of certain builds. Take Cheat or Chuck builds for example. Moving on from the Company Man, we also have the Atlas Replay, which is a really fun pistol that basically takes what a basic Atlas tracker pistol does, but dials the effects up to 11. Not only do the actual tracker darts just automatically target nearby enemies, but the tracker darts also go through walls too, because why the hell not? It also does splash, because it needed more spice, and it fires faster with the more enemies you tag. This gun synergizes really nicely with a bottomless mag spec on Moze, as you can keep firing for hours on end and not have to worry about reloading. But the gun also has a really fast reload time as well, so if you're not really a fan of firing forever, you can reload your gun and not really be impacted at all. Being an Atlas weapon, it is kinetic and doesn't roll in any other elements, but it can come anointed, and things like URAD and 150/90 work great on it. I am working on a build revolving around this gun, so stay tuned to the channel if you want to see what I end up coming up with. The other gun that drops from Hemo is the Ionic Disruptor. It's a Jacobs sniper rifle, and the best way I can describe this is it's basically a trespasser from Borderlands 2. And if you didn't play Borderlands 2, basically a sniper that ignores shields. And by that, I mean it does direct HP damage, even if the enemy has a shield up. I wouldn't exactly categorize this gun as top tier, but it does decently well for mobbing, especially when you can get overkill ramped up, and you're hitting critical spots on the enemies. And that's basically it from Hemo. There's a few more gear pieces that came out with this DLC, but they're locked behind either the Vault cards or Arms Race. The Vault cards are an additional piece of content that released alongside the Director's Cut DLC, and they're basically like a battle pass in a sense, where you do daily challenges and level up through the ranks to unlock cosmetics, diamond keys, which I'll cover off shortly, and the new gear, which we'll speak about right now. So, the Vault cards got introduced with the Director's Cut DLC as an additional form of content to give you a way to farm for diamond keys, cosmetics, and some nifty pieces of exclusive gear. Essentially, you complete daily and weekly challenges, while also just doing random mobbing and killing bosses, to level up your Vault card. Every time you level up your Vault card, you get to open a Vault chest that can give you keys. You then use these keys to purchase the cosmetic items or the exclusive gear. I'm quite a fan of this system in all honesty. So far, there's been 2 Vault cards in the game introduced, each with its own unique loot, and a third one on the way, which I'm sure will contain even spicier loot than its predecessors. The gear itself in Vault Card 1 and 2 are quite interesting, so I think now's a good time to talk about them now. Starting off with Vault Card 1, welcome to Pandora, we have the Gold Rush. It's a corrosive locked Hyperion SMG with a fairly unique set of skills, and by that I mean its special effect. When you kill an enemy with the Gold Rush, they drop cash. Picking up these stacks of cash gives you a 5% bonus to fire rate, reload speed, and magazine size, up to a maximum of 20 stacks, totaling 100% extra bonuses. And here's the kicker. Swapping to another weapon transfers this bonus for a short period of time, so you can supercharge your favorite gun to fire and reload faster, as well as juicing up its mag size. All in all, it's a pretty neat gun, and the gun itself is decent enough for mobbing, but it's this nifty little swapping mechanic that makes things even more interesting. The second addition to the Vault Card 1 arsenal is the Troubleshooter. It's an alien barrel Hyperion that doesn't roll in any elements, but that is exactly what makes it special. The Troubleshooter adapts to the enemy you're shooting at and changes the elements of the bullets to make it more effective against them. Shooting a Psyker with a red health bar? Enjoy these incense rounds to deal bonus damage. Shooting a shield bar? Congratulations, your gun now shoots shock. This alone makes the gun very interesting, but unfortunately its actual performance in endgame content is a bit iffy. But this gun is fantastic and honestly quite useful during campaign and DLC playthroughs. Next on the list, and rounding out the Vault Card 1 gear, we have the Schluter. And no, it's not a gun. It's an Iridian artifact that drastically boosts wall drop legendary chances by 1000% for 12 seconds after a kill. If you ever wanted to fuel your inner loot gremlin and fill your vault up to the brim with wood blockers and laser splitters, this Schluter artifact will be your best friend. Moving swiftly along to Vault Card 2, Fallen Heroes, we start off with the mechanic, a COV rocket launcher that pays tribute to our space cowboy Scooter. Rest in peace, buddy. Although, unlike Scooter, the mechanic is an absolutely useless launcher. It does poorly even against trash mobs unless you go completely out of your way to maximize launcher damage through god rolling your gear. There is a slight upside, however. If, for some reason, you choose to live out your Mad Max fantasies and drive around like an absolute psychopath, the mechanic boosts your vehicle damage so you can beat up your enemies to your heart's content, all while relaxing in the comfortable interior of your automobile. The next gun on the list is a shotgun that calls itself the Guardian Angel. It's Hyperion made and locked to shock only. The selling point for this gun is the fact that it does more damage based on how far away from the target you are. But for some reason, the devs thought gun with this effect will be perfectly combined with extremely slow Sandhawk style projectiles, just to make it a challenge to hit enemies and actually benefit from the bonus damage. But it does ricochet too, which is fun, I guess. As you can tell, I'm not impressed by this gun, and if you think this gun is good, you're perfectly entitled to your wrong opinion. Second to last, we have the Bird of Prey sniper rifle. Jacob's made, with the special effect being that it has a chance to spawn an extra projectile that does bonus damage. It's an overwhelmingly mediocre sniper rifle, and honestly just feels like a bootleg version of the Unseen Threat, which has significantly more spawn projectiles to actually make it worth using. Overall,
sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
And rounding off the list, we have the Super Soldier Shield, which is quite a fun shield to use. It's manufactured by Engine and gives you 50% fire rate, 25% movement speed, and 5% ammo regen when your shield is full. And when your shield recharges to full, you gain a protective barrier that renders you invincible for 5 seconds. You can also roll with 2 extra shield parts as well to give other bonuses like Fortify, Amp, or Absorb, which can add a cherry to the top of your already min-maxed builds. Most can make synergized use out of the shield and boast an even higher rate of ammo regeneration and fire bullets with reckless abandon for hours on end. And real quick before we talk about the mini story DLC that the director's cut brought along with it, let's just quickly talk about the diamond keys. As you progress through the vault cards, there's a chance that you get a diamond key from the vault chests. Using these keys, you can activate a special room under the bridge on Sanctuary that blesses you with a bunch of different loot from 3 different categories: shields, weapons, and grenades. These pieces of gear can be pretty much anything in the game, including dedicated mayhem specific drops, DLC boss loot, and so on. You get the idea. Once you claim one item from each category, you then get another weapon that could once again be anything. It's a pretty interesting way to get loot if you ask me. Anyway, let's move on. So this new mini story DLC that came out with Director's Cut follows Ava's dreams in becoming the Pandoran equivalent of Joe Rogan, and has you solving a few murder mysteries with a spooky supernatural twist that are all connected. Anyway, playing through this made me realize how absolutely amazing this game looks, and the mobbing areas are honestly quite nice. There's also a few named enemies that drop some pretty sweet, unique loot, and the boss fight at the very end honestly surprised me with its visual design and takes the cake for one of the best looking boss fights that we've had in a Borderlands game up until now. Speaking of the final boss, the Seer, drops the new class mods, and for most, it's the Heat Exchanger class mod that gives you Iron Bear minigun damage up to 80%, since Iron Bear is incredibly lacking in damage and needs whatever damage bonuses that it can get. Oh yeah, and Mamara, Zane, and Flak also got new class mods that does things too, I guess. The other drop from this here is pretty nifty too. It's a rocket launcher, aptly called the Red Eye Rocket Pod. It's basically a mortar with some extra spice. What it essentially does is give you an extra projectile with every kill you get, maxing out to 4. These extra projectiles don't actually consume any extra ammo, which is pretty damn cool. but this bonus resets once you kill a boss or a badass type enemy. While a fun gun to use, it's still a mortar at the end of the day, and feels clunky to fire, as you end up becoming a victim to somewhat slow projectile speeds, and hoping and praying that there's no objects to block the path of your missiles itself. You can get the red eye in all the elemental flavors, but I've been on a cry kick for a while, so that's what I'm using in the background gameplay. Same goes for annoyance, and I'm using the 150/90. However, URAD works pretty nifty too. Aside from the seer, the mini bosses in this DLC also have unique loot. Right off the bat, we have the Revolta shield. Locked a shock and drops on the Sumo and Eschaton row on Promethea, and overall, it's a really good shield. Its main selling point is its legendary effect, which says that on shield break, you become shock enraged for 15 seconds. But what does shock enraged mean? Well, it basically means that it adds a bonus element in the form of shock that does 200% bonus damage to all instances of damage. Melee, action skill, and basically anything else that creates a damage source. It works very nicely with the action skill start anoint that triggers shield break and fill effects, and essentially enables permanent damage uptime with the right build. Next on the list is the Mesmer grenade that drops from the Gravekeeper in Enoch's Grove on Eden 6. The Mesmer special effect is that it essentially turns enemies into allies temporarily. For 10 seconds to be exact, that will draw aggro from surrounding enemies. This grenade is useful in pinch situations where you need to fall back and heal, or are just getting overwhelmed by enemies, as you can just toss a Mesmer into the group of enemies, and the enemies will just end up wailing on the poor sod that decided to get brainwashed. And rounding up the boss loot in this DLC, we have the Free Radical, which is what happens when the devs decide to power creep the beacon, which only exists because the devs decided to power creep the Hell Shock. You get the idea. The Free Radical is manufactured by Maliwan and locked a shock that does an absolute stupid amount of damage, and because we hate the beacon and don't need a use case for it anymore, the devs decided to give the Free Radical homing projectiles too, that decide to spawn an enemy hit and track back onto said enemy for even more damage. But in most cases, the spawned homing projectiles are kinda useless, only because the enemies get absolutely decimated by the Free Radical before the projectiles even get a chance to spawn. So that's it for the video. If you found this video useful or enjoyable for some reason, don't forget to subscribe for more videos and let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions or anything that I may have talked about. And for those of you who made it to the end, you're a real one. And for that, I think you all deserve an explanation for where I disappeared to. Short story is, I got completely burnt out from Borderlands in general. And also, streaming till 2 or 3 AM every day didn't exactly do me any favors for the coming workday, and so I decided to make the smart choice and focus on my actual career instead, which I still am, mind you, but I think I found a more sustainable schedule to put out content for you guys, whether it be here on YouTube or on Twitch like I've been doing these past few weeks over on my Twitch channel, link in the description. I've also been playing a few other games too and gotten really good at them.
Radar scanner?
The big sock?
Radar scanner? Oh, I'm dead.
Don't shoot me! You wouldn't do that to me, would you? Oh.
It wasn't a dead, it was a tournament.
Oh, I'm dead again.
The wagon. Ah, I'm dead.
Anyway, that's where I've been, so there's your explanation. Also, if you're still watching and enjoyed what you've seen, friendly reminder to subscribe and like the video, or don't, it's your choice. I trust you to make the right decision, or I'll end you. I mean, what?